concerns me. I feel very sorry for law enforcement, because this is going to be an issue. And I mean, it might be fun to have an entire town stoned, but I'm not sure that that's very productive for a community. You know, these are issues that can come up. I guess we're not going to get much of a ruling from the feds until we have our own Attorney General in our area, and we don't have anybody right now. We have Eric Holder, but the President's supposed to appoint.
Yeah, we don't have a U.S. attorney yet.
That's what I meant. We don't have anybody to take care of that.
Correct. Under the Obama administration.
That seems to be a big hole. And so I was looking at the city of Corona, Anaheim, all these various places. And the interesting thing to me was I heard the other night that Vista, La Mesa, and a couple of others have banned it outright.
Correct.
Do you have a list of those communities and for what reason they banned them?
Mostly on the federal grounds, because it is illegal.
Okay.
I will find out more. I'll be at the city attorney's monthly meeting on next Thursday, and while it's not on the agenda, I'm sure it'll be a topic of discussion.
Yeah. I mean, after all, if you're a cancer patient, AIDS patient, somebody with horrible injuries, for example, I can see the efficacy for some people. It doesn't work for everybody, like some pharmaceuticals don't work. But the troubling factor to me are what they have in here as minor injuries, minor conditions. What are they? I've got a case of acne, or I've got a pimple somewhere, or, you know, what does it mean by minor issues? That I found in the stuff. I read so much stuff, I'm going cross-eyed with it. So these are questions that come to mind.
As a lawyer, I should object that these are compound questions. But one of the things I'd like to do, if you go forward with the moratorium, is listen to a tape of the meeting, because these are good questions. The ordinances, I don't mean to pick on other city attorneys, but I think the experiences of the cities that had these early, they didn't have enough information to be able to draft, you know, good ordinances, and so that was one of the problems that were had. It's easy to draft a ban, and we'll find out, we may find out after the Anaheim case comes down, because an outright ban in the city of 275,000 is different than an outright ban in the city of 39,000, because a city that's the center of a region, you know, has more trouble. Los Angeles can't ban, you know, certain types of land uses just because of its sheer size. So what we'll need to do is look for the direction in that case to see, because it may be more than just a ban, it may also be how the court could come out with direction to help us on how we deal with a lot of the issues you're talking about too. The case that came down yesterday gave me a lot of input that I didn't get from other cases, and it was essentially a search and seizure question. You know, it was a criminal case, but there was a lot of nuggets in there to help us on land use aspects of it. This is not the typical. I didn't mean to be cavalier by saying it's easy to draft a ban, but if the moratorium goes into effect and then we're studying this, the ban is easy to work on, because it's just right now your zoning code is a typical zoning code that if it's not a permitted use listed, it's not allowed, and so that it's fairly easy to follow up on that. If you go into regulating it because of the issues that you've asked and many more, the extent to which the city is involved is going to be subject to a lot of, you know, crafting, and frankly, from the ordinances I've seen so far, they're not very good, just to be honest with you. And so we would need to, you know, work pretty well. Normally, you know, you just turn this over to Greg. It's a land use issue, and Greg would handle it, no problem. But this is one with a lot more legal issues, obviously, just answering the questions that you've asked and the role that the city would play to make sure that you, as stewards of the entire city, you know, put in language that would protect. Because if Anaheim comes out and says no city can ban them ever, you have to have them someplace, then we're going to have to deal with the regulations regardless. And I honestly don't know where the council's going on this.
Well,
So, and I don't think the public should read anything into it.
Well, Proposition 215 made it clear there was that vote of the people, but I think in certain circumstances it could be a law of unintended consequences. I mean, the overall intent of that particular initiative, I think, was to alleviate pain and suffering.
Right.
But there are all these extra things that are trickling out.
I think our question here is dealing with whether we want to go forward with this.
Right. But I just got thousands of questions, so
I understand it. I'm not sure.
I won't do any more tonight.
We would bring back.
There's a study period involved here. You got 45 days.
Well, I mean, I look back and I see that it used to be legal years and years ago, and then it was suddenly banned. When was it? The 30s or 40s or something. And I always think of prohibition as a case in point, so who knows?
Ms. Bragg is up next.
Thank you. I would be in support of the moratorium, only because there's two other groups. Well, actually, there's one group in particular that we haven't heard from, and that would be our law enforcement here in the community. And always, when I vote on something, it's because I've talked to a lot of people, or a lot of people have talked to me, made their feelings known on a certain issue. It's not always how I would vote personally. And I really haven't had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people about this. And I had noticed that in the newspaper on Saturday, August 15th, Chula Vista was in the same boat. We are considering a moratorium, but they were also going to have a workshop so that the public could weigh in. The public could say, okay, we do or we don't want this. So that's probably the main reason why I would support moratorium. I want to talk to my friends and neighbors and my constituents and find out, well, do you want it or not? You know, and if you do, how do you want it? Where do you want it? Those kinds of issues. So that's my input.
Mr. King, did you have some more?
Yeah, just real quickly, I think a lot of the comments made by Councilmember McCoy are very good comments. There's a lot of vagary, I think, in the state law. One of the things that struck me, and I just wanted to bring this out, it was quite interesting. One of the references is that they can't have medical marijuana within a certain footage of any schools. However, it didn't, and now it's okay to possess it, it's okay to use it if you have a medical reason. You can get it from a dispensary, that isn't well covered in the way state law is set up. However, it doesn't say anything about smoking it anyplace else on the street. Now, that is an interesting kind of concept when you look at impact on community, somebody walking down the street smoking a joint. So we do need to look at these things pretty closely, and ordinances in place on a local level, I think, will address a lot of these issues.
Ms. Rose?
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to weigh in and thank Councilmember McCoy for raising a number of very well thought out issues around this. I also would support the moratorium. This is an incredibly complex issue. On one hand, you have, you know, the intent behind Prop 215, which is the compassionate use of marijuana for very ill patients. I think, though, since 1996, we've had 13 years, we've seen this evolve. And I think we've all seen the news media, of course, emphasizing probably a lot of the negative. And we've seen a lot of that, the negative and the abuses and a lot of the issues in other communities that are surrounding the co-ops that are springing up. So it looks like it could be a regulatory nightmare. If you have numerous regulations, then